Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to what will probably be the last podcast we ever have the desire to record. This is an episode of The Weekly Pessimist. I'm your friend Joseph Craven. I'm joined by Gray Barnes. I'm joined by, first time on our... No. We've done this before. You and Ro and I went up to a basketball game. Craig Watson joining us on the show tonight. So a recurring guest. Craig.
Yeah, it was about a year ago.
It really was. It was about this time. We recorded I think, a groundbreaking episode about officiating and why officials suck.
It was.
I remember that episode.
And then we went into why people become officials because of their father issues and the need for approval. Yeah. That's right. Go dig that one out of the archives if you're really interested.
Yeah, that was a good one. Ro has just jumped in. We weren't sure if Ro was going to be able to.
There I am.
If he's going to be able to make it or not, but he is here. He was having to allegedly. Allegedly he was putting his child to sleep. I'm not buying it. But
she was not happy, which is I'm also not happy either for a lot of different reasons.
This has been
coming in hot.
With his
beanbag. Well, we get it. You're rich and you got a beanbag.
I honest to God did not realize that was a beanbag. I legitimately thought that Ro, because of the way the camera was, just fell on the ground.
I'm mad and fell on the ground.
I wish, dude. I feel like it. I gotta get settled. Hang on. Let me get settled.
Oh man. Well, this has been one of the worst sports weekends. If you're a Mississippi State fan, you know, if you're listening to this podcast episode, you probably are. And if you're not, then that raises questions. But we are also recording on the evening that the New Orleans Saints have been eliminated from the NFL playoffs, which if you're a Saints fan, like I know Gray is and Ro's getting into these days, he's wearing his Saints hoodie and everything.
I'm still proud.
Craig, you're an enigma. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I would have preferred to see them win. I'm not emotionally attached to them, thank God, like I am the Bulldogs. But I would have preferred to see them win. Yeah, it's not in the cards for them. They like Mississippi State. Their stadium is built on an Indian burial ground as well. So.
You know, I texted my friend Chad Gibbs, friend of the program. Texted Chad after the Auburn basketball game on Saturday, and I said, Chad, I was like, is Auburn's campus, like, do you guys have like a leprechaun like trapped on campus that you get like, you know, like good fortune to have? I was like, I just want to know what the secret is because I'm convinced Mississippi State is built on some sort of cursed burial ground. And like everything's always going to go wrong. And Chad was like, yeah, he's like, actually, if you take a campus tour, you get to see him in his little cage dancing around. So I got jealous.
Could be a leprechaun.
I'm
pretty sure that famous video was filmed in Auburn, Alabama, or close to it.
Mobile. So nowhere near it.
Nowhere near it.
Yeah, just
I got the Alabama part right, though.
Yeah, I mean, we can't fault you for that.
Yeah.
So in the span of about 24-ish hours, of course, and we were planning at this point in time on getting together tonight, recording a, for whatever reason, we thought we should record a season in review episode. I don't know why we thought that was a good idea, but then the news broke of the dismissal of Coach Joe Moorhead. Immediately after that, we were like, well, you know what? Maybe we'll have some good stuff to talk about from the Auburn basketball game and the tail end of that. We don't. Nothing good to come out of that one as well. So this is an interesting episode. And I guess first and foremost, let's go kind of around the clockwise formation of screens here in our recording session.
Okay.
Let's start with you, Gray. But I know, Gray, you and I had talked before the season. Let's do our little season in review of Mississippi State football now that it's officially done, now that the bowl is mercifully over, now that we can all sit around and recover our faces after Willie Gay has punched us all emotionally. But Gray, you and I talked a little bit before the season that we really felt like this was probably only going to be about a 6, maybe 7 win season. That was kind of our expectation based on what was going on. But we just wanted to see a little bit of improvement. Before we get into the Moorhead discussion, I mean, how would you actually rate the season at all? I mean, was anything actually any better, or was it just kind of the same thing, you think?
It was the same thing, if not much, much worse. I know before the season started, we said that 7 wins was probably going to be kind of where we were at. If we got a Kansas State win, or one of those kind of toss-up type of games, like that'd be a plus. That'd be great. But we were counting on those wins coming from much more from the offense than we were from the defense, like the previous season. No offensive improvement at all. We had our starting quarterback kind of being in a rotation, whether due to injury or performance, or getting punched in the face by a teammate during the last bowl practice of the year. So no stability there, no real improvement.
You expect.
Yeah, of course. And it just never happened. We were promised a 500-yard receiver. Like, that's a lot to ask for in an air raid offense. And never even really got that. And it was just, you hear the same thing week after week of, we got this to improve and that to improve. Nothing improved. I mean, if not for Kylan Hill and a game or two on the ground from Schrader, I mean, there's nothing to write home about on the offensive side of the ball. So, making it to a bowl game, I thought after all the team had been through and the ups and downs of the year, like at least we got that, getting to a bowl game. But then that performance was just oof. Giving up 31 unanswered points and just 3 and out after 3 and out. I mean, it was something is definitely apparent that it's just something's not working. And, it was a disappointing season, not necessarily in the wins and losses category, but much deeper than that. And I think that's kind of where, the administration kind of had to step in and make a change, and fan enthusiasm and support kind of at a low for a low over the past decade. So, just real disappointing, and wish we could have seen some better things from the offense this year.
Yeah, I feel like one of the things that we had noticed at times during the season, you'd see something like, well, for a little bit in there, Osiris Mitchell and Farad Green were looking quite good. Early in the season, they were making catches. They were consistently actually running routes. And then all of a sudden, I don't think I heard from Osiris for the entire second half of the year. Farad kind of went back to his Farad Green stuff that he likes to do, which is commit penalties and drop passes. It was weird that the stuff that looked like it was about to improve suddenly stopped and regressed. I think that might be the most telltale thing that I observed, at least. But
I mean, to be fair, Osiris had a lot of his success with Tommy Stevens,
right?
A healthy Tommy Stevens,
which we got to see very, very little of. Which I do think factors greatly into it,
for sure. So I credit that to a lot of Osiris's drop off. Is there wasn't much chemistry with Schrader for whatever reason, and on Schrader's side of things, it seemed like he had a lot more chemistry with Dedrick Thomas. Dedrick Thomas kind of stepped up a little bit more once, but you can't.
Because they're both Mullen-style players. They were both.
Yeah. I guess. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, let me ask this before we turn it over to Craig. But so if you had to give a letter grade on the season, A through F, A plus through F minus, I guess, what would you give it then, Gray?
On the field?
Man. The season in general, everything take into account.
Gosh, I mean, I don't want to say an F, but it was, D.
Okay.
I mean, there wasn't much to be excited about or feel, hey, we're improving in this area. I mean, if you look at every position on the field, what improved? I don't know. I can't really think of one other than maybe Kylan actually getting being a featured bat, but he was injured a lot of the season too. So I don't know.
Craig, you agree with that assessment? What's your take on how the season went? Did you see anything improve from last year? Did you see anything get worked out? I mean, obviously, we're looking at it now on the tail end with Joe Moorhead dismissed, with the bowl game disaster, with the punch, to the Schrader punch, all that sort of stuff. We're looking at it on the tail end of that. But, I mean, when you look at everything before all of this happens, I mean, did you see anything at all?
So going into the season, I think we all knew it was going to be a down year from the previous year, obviously, because we lost 3 first-round draft picks on defense. But I think the big kicker for me, or when I started noticing things were going to be, there was trouble. Think about what Gray just said when you said give a letter grade, and the first thing he said was on the field. I got to think the reason he said that is because the atmosphere or the culture started to be exposed. And the first time I noticed that was, I think it was after the LSU game when Joe Moorhead started saying, well, this program's in the right damn direction or whatever. He started throwing his little fit there. And that post-game press conference, if you guys remember that. And so that happened. Then he started bringing up Bob from Bochita, which, I felt personally attacked on that one. I don't know why, but what did Bob do? And
Bob was in your wedding, if I remember correctly.
Yes, of course, obviously. And then go pound sand, and then of course the icing on the cake was Willie Gay. But I said all that to say, I think honestly that was more. When you start to see 2 storylines, the on-field stuff and then the what's going on with the culture, what's going on with the atmosphere, and you've got all that going on, that's when you know that there's a real problem. You're starting to lose interest. Nobody's caring anymore. To your point, as far as what happened with the team, offense felt flat. I'm baffled at how we beat Kentucky. Honestly, I was at that game, and as you watched Kentucky through the rest of the season, I don't know how we won it. We got into a bowl by the skin of our teeth. Literally. Well,
Kentucky wasn't playing their best quarterback, Lynn Bowden Jr. at that point in time.
No, and we got into a bowl game literally because of that incident from that player, and I will not speak those people's names, but. But we didn't deserve to win that game. They gave that game away. So anyway, letter grade definitely minus. Did things improve? No way.
Say the letter grade again, because you cut out for just a quick second.
C minus.
C minus.
And
okay.
I feel like we got worse throughout the season, and some of that could have been due to quarterback injuries and going back and forth. But I think again, a lot of that I have to imagine, certainly looking at it through this lens at the end of the year, that some of it also had to do with what's going on off the field, what's going on outside of that. And when you see things like, take that fight, for instance, obviously dust-ups are going to happen, but when things like that happen, and what other decent program lets their starting quarterback get knocked out, right? It doesn't happen. And a lot of times that's an indicator. It's because the players aren't really worried about what's going to happen, what the consequences are going to be. Right. So that's why I say, and then when you got a coach who's like, you're going to have to drag my Yankee ass out of here and blah, blah, blah. Again, it's like, okay, there's a lot going on there behind the scenes. That's what I feel like too. And one more point quickly. Yeah. I said this, I was talking to a evening. I've season tickets every single year. And I don't have kids. I'm not a big deer hunter. So that's my thing. And when somebody like me is saying, okay, I'm probably not going to renew my season tickets, I got to imagine the people who are really fair weather fans, I got to imagine they're going home in droves as well. So when I'm not enthused about going back, a lot of other people aren't either.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It plays a lot into it. I mean, I was literally in Starkville for like on Thanksgiving at my siblings' house with my whole family. And no, there were other circumstances, but I didn't want to go to the game. So like I didn't. I stayed and watched it, at my brother and sister-in-law's house. Part of that being my wife was there with me and she wanted to go ahead and drive back that evening. So, we didn't want to get tied up in the game and then have to drive back and get back home at like 2, 3 a.m., that sort of thing, So there was that factor. But again, for someone like me who's had
a lot of excitement.
What's that?
There wasn't a lot of excitement.
No.
Yeah.
And it was kind of nerves. Like I had this feeling like it was just going to be a repeat of 2 years ago. It just kind of felt that way to me. And I mean, and also, I just was tired. By that point in the season, I was tired. I was tired during the season. I was tired of the sport. It doesn't happen to me too often, but it was happening then. I do think some of the extenuating circumstances you brought up of, some injuries and, the suspensions beforehand, of course, obviously stand out as stuff that does factor into it. And I will wrap back around on that in a little bit here. But yeah, I think that's a great point. When you see the two storylines come out, the on the field and the off the field, as looking like branching different things, then unless you're, Urban Meyer and you can get away with having an assistant that hits his wife, then it's a sign of bad things, right? Unless you're a big program, then things are probably going wrong. So, Ro, wrap us up here. I mean, your assessment and letter grade that you want to give here on as well to the end of the year.
Well, what I really loved what Dabo Swinney did with the Tigers this year. I think he did a really great job.
Yeah. The comeback against Ohio State. Yeah.
Yeah. The win streak is still going. I think we're on maybe win number 21. Looking at it, I mean, it's just incredible.
Yep. I'm going to go ahead and just remove Ro for a minute. I'm kidding. Go for it, Ro. Go.
Honest to God, I'm only bringing that up because, I mean, you can't give another, I guess you can, but when your coach gets fired at the end of the season, that's a colossal failure. I mean, so F minus negative grades. I got a negative grade before in a test, and I still have to go to therapy for that.
Okay, hold up. What class?
It was in English. Shocker, I know.
Okay, no. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah.
It was in English. It's a true story. I got a negative 15 on a.
I know this. I have to get a translator to read text from you, and tell me what you were trying to say.
Oh gosh, oh man, I'm just waiting for that Apple brain chip that's gonna just translate my thoughts. Waiting for that one. Anyways, no, it has to be an F. I mean, the only highlight was the SEC leading rusher in Kylan Hill, Columbus, Mississippi, stand up. But. Even like I think somebody said earlier, like we didn't even get to see the full package of him. He was injured. This season, I think the best words that I could come up with all start with I, and that's inadequate, inept, and just incomplete. I don't know. The amount of throws to receivers, incomplete. How many times did I hear that on the radio this year? It's like. It just was a bad year, even though our record does not indicate that we went 0-11. It really feels like that. I mean, like, I'm with Craig. I don't know how we beat Kentucky. I don't know why we beat Kentucky. When you think about too, I mean, to Craig's point a minute ago, like, how many other programs would also allow the other player that got in a fight, like, to start that game? You know what I mean? Like one of our players' eye is as big as a fist, after he gets injured, and then he's out there tackling dudes on the field. Which, if we'd have won, I might have a different feeling about that, but we didn't. And like, then you read all the reports of like the guys like not showing up to practice and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, yeah. So yeah, F minus because. Not only was it a terrible season, But now, because our coach has been fired, we're what I assume we're about to talk about in a minute. We're in this coaching search with a list of candidates that underwhelming might be the word.
That's the nicest word.
Yeah, no. So disappointing all the way around. I shockingly watched all the games this year. And again, like I said, Clemson is doing a great job. It's a really great program. So I'm about to sell my allegiances to Clemson for free.
A little bit of maybe the only thing I got right in like sports predictions or statements in the past year was when I said I felt like Clemson was the premier program in the country. And like you couldn't, and like not Alabama anymore. Like Alabama's on the decline and Clemson's going to be the consistent premier program for the next several years. I think I was right about that.
I think you were too, honestly.
Yep. Well, I'll wrap it up with kind of my thoughts on it. And my whole thing is I still feel worse about last season than this season.
Yeah.
Even with the messes that we've had and like the fights, all that sort of stuff. I still feel like, I mean, first of all, you had a bunch of idiot players that got suspended for most of the year. One of them being one of the best and few returning defensive players, who, as it turns out, is also a crazy person and is willing to punch the quarterback in the face. You had, I mean, a defense that had no.
But wait a minute, though. You're saying he's crazy, but he also is like really good with money. Like he saves money every year. He saves it, and that's got to be something, right? I mean, I saw all that cash on Twitter, so he's got that going for him. He's a good financial planner, I guess.
You know, got to give him credit to that. I assume he is a finance a major up there at Mississippi State. I'm assuming he's getting his accounting degree. I don't know for sure. But you know, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of. I mean, you lose all but 2 defensive starters. And I hold to it that Leo Lewis does not count as a returning player because he was just butt for most of this season. He just was. You know, so the defense was completely depleted. As soon as we get in a rhythm with Tommy Stevens, he has an injury that he never recovers from. Schrader's a true freshman. You know, there's just a lot of extenuating circumstances. So as far as a lot of the actual on the field stuff, I'm a lot more lenient in that regard when it comes to kind of my assessment of that. And so if I'm separating just the on the field stuff, I'm kind of putting this at a C minus of a year because, I mean, kind of the expectation beforehand was at least keep the bowl streak going, at least get 6, maybe 7 wins, kind of make it through that, and let's try to improve off of that. And there was a lot of circumstances going around. So I feel like I'm a little bit more lenient than most people are on that. And I bring up the whole I'm a little bit more lenient than a lot of people are issue because I think once you tie in not just the off the field stuff, not just like the fight, not just the skipping practice, but also when you tie in the way the administration has handled it and the way the fans have been crying since last season, I think both of those groups, administration and fan base, get an F and drag the whole season down to a failing grade. Because there's a lot of us that have been season ticket holders for a long, long time, and we were tired and frustrated. You know, Craig, you already said it. You know, I mentioned it too. Gray left the state. He was so he moved to another state. He was so like obviously, if we are just tired and don't really want to, you know, have the urge to renew tickets, that sort of thing, like something is wrong there. And I think that's justified. There's also a lot of people that have not known Mississippi State football outside of the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. You know, the current students, since they've been old enough to really pay attention, that's all they've really known. There's Well, I can get into a whole monologue about, social media fans and how social media has just, opened up the door to so many people spouting terrible opinions openly all the time. They're more vocal these days. So there's a lot of that I think really affects kind of the issue. And I think that's the embarrassment of the fight, the embarrassment of the bowl, and then some of the pressure from some of the louder people that maybe, are just spoiled by the 10 years of pretty consistent success. We're getting tired of consistency. We need something better than that. And the fact that Moorhead showed no improvement this season, the fact that he was, not coming along as quick, it irritates people. It puts people down. So puts people down. That's not what I meant to say. It let people down. It insulted a bunch of folks. So it's a weird, confusing situation in my head because, I think it's last season should have been better. But after last season, I was able to kind of say, well, this is at least a 3-year job that looks more like he's turning it into a 5-year job, whether he wants to or not, by not learning fast enough. And I still think that's been Moorhead's biggest sin, is not learning quite fast enough how to be a head coach. You see it in the disciplinary stuff. You see it in the skipping practice stuff. You've got to have control of the program.
You don't think it's because he was from the North?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
How many times have you heard that?
Oh my God. It's like, did we forget that Mullen was from New Hampshire?
I told, and I think it was Roe. I told this. I was like, these people are acting like it's Game of Thrones or something. It's like, he's from the North, and
he's from the North.
And like I think you pointed this out in one of the texts. It's like, if anything, people could agree on is that he was a super nice guy and recruited well and got along with everybody really well. Like into the community very well.
And he also that Yankee moved down south and gained like 50 pounds. That's the most Southern thing ever.
Like, what is that? What is that? Like,
I don't know, man.
He's from the North. We are not in the Civil War anymore, guys. Like, it is okay.
Lannister always pays the debts.
God, I know. No, you're absolutely. You read like most of the articles that like people from the community have written. They're like, we were frustrated stuff on the field, but like, there was an article I think I sent to you guys a little bit earlier where someone was like, he heard a story of some kids that put out like a Christmas list and is like, we just kind of need like stuff to be able to survive. Like our family doesn't have anything. He like delivered Christmas meals to kids in the community, stuff like that. So like, he was being a part of the community. I don't understand why people were just acting like he's an outsider. Yeah. We can't have him around here.
Yeah, I'm very often curious when we're called the hospitality state.
I know, yeah. I say I don't understand. I completely understand. People are idiots like that. I watch a lot of soccer, or English soccer in particular, and it's really funny how like Brexit and like that weird nationality, like national pride stuff plays into like players that aren't native from England. They're just like, we don't want them here. I'm like, they're better than you. Your national players suck. Your team's terrible. Anyway. All right, so let's go in reverse order now. Go back down to Roe. The firing, I think we all agree, awful timing. But real quick, do you think it was justified at this point, Roe?
I mean, given all that we've talked about already and all that we've seen, I mean, the whole I kind of was like, seems a little extreme at first, but then I saw the picture of Garrett Schrader's eye, and I was like, yeah, I'm not okay with that.
Moorhead didn't punch Schrader.
right. But just the principle of like, all right, whatever happened. And again, I made this joke earlier. Like, I'm sure he was defending some fair maiden's honor or something, or whatever was going on. Or they probably got into an accounting debate.
Right.
And so, like,
frequent locker room talk right there.
Frequent, they're probably talking about like whether or not to invest in, Apple or Google or something. So I can understand that things happen, but when you look at like the circumstances, like, okay, we're not the greatest team, and we kind of depended on our quarterback who like doesn't just fall on the ground and break his clavicle like Tommy Stevens. So like
that we called that the Michael Hennig injury.
So like we kind of need him.
Keeps a broken clavicle around all the time. That's the Hennig injury right there.
Yeah, and then when like Joe Moorhead refers him to as like an upper body injury, and you see his eye, and it's like this, like it looks like a fist coming out of his eye socket. It's like, all right, so that's a tipping point. But then you think as well, like when he's sitting there telling people to go pound sand on stuff, I think a lot of it has to do with how you carry yourself and how you present yourself as a coach and as a leader. And so, like, is it justified? Yeah. Timing, not so much. Maybe we could have gone through another year of just terribleness, but maybe this is a way to get people like all of us to renew some season tickets and get excited with a hire. Although, I'm really excited about Gene Chizik. It's going to be awesome. So that's what I think. So to answer your question specifically, yeah, sure, it's justified. Why not? We pay them $4 million a year, so you behave like that. Bye.
Greg, you agree with that?
What was the question?
Was it justified? Was the firing, you feel like, justified at this point?
Yes.
Quick answer. I respect that.
End of discussion.
End of discussion.
Greg, what about you?
I mean, at this point, I would say yes. Before the bowl game, I was definitely in the camp of let's see what we got in year 3. After listening to Cohen's press conference, kind of announcing the move and hearing as an administration why they felt like they needed to make the move, I was much more on the side of what needs to happen, what's going to happen eventually should happen immediately.
Okay.
Is what you could say. Because before the bowl game, after we beat Ole Miss, there was a lot of support from Cohen, and they were, doing the Mississippi government employee thing of, extending him to that 4th year because we can't, So that felt like more of a formality, but hearing it from Cohen, it was like, yeah, we're excited where the program is heading, and coming off of, a big Egg Bowl win, which you should never base a program's worth off of a rivalry game victory or any one game in particular. So something had to have been noticed or really kind of investigated more into between that time and the bowl game. I mean, obviously we know about the whole scuffle in practice and Schrader's eye getting blown out of the back of his skull and then losing the game the way that we did. And Cohen hears all this stuff about, what you guys are saying about not renewing season tickets and fan enthusiasm, and couple that with the on the field performance and kind of what next season looks like. It's not a very exciting time, not a lot of great games to attend, even if you did have season tickets. So I do feel it's justified, especially after hearing what Cohen had to say in his discussions with Dr. Keenum. So yeah, I'm kind of on board.
All right. I guess I'm going to be the lone dissenter here, because I really just don't see the justification, and maybe timing plays a lot into my judgment, and that this is the single worst time I can think of to try to start a coaching search.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
it is a bad time.
It's a terrible time, but I also just feel like it shows firing any coach after 2 years, I think, shows an intense amount of short-sightedness from administration. And if that is ultimately Cohen that I'm talking about, then, so be it. If I feel like if that is supposed to reflect back on him, I feel like it reflects poorly. Because if you felt confident maybe we got spoiled because Mullen was an assistant who apparently was ready to be a head coach, and that doesn't happen often. That's rare. But I mean, if you hire an assistant coach and feel confident that he's ready to be a head coach, then you shouldn't panic when he's not ready. I feel like the decision being right now and the time that it was, that it did happen after the bowl, and I mean, honestly, out of embarrassment because of the bowl game and the fight, I feel like it was a bit of a panic fire. And I'm not necessarily saying that, Moorhead deserved a third year. I'm just saying that for the health of the program, doing the third year just to see if he's actually learning what he should be learning as a head coach, sets you up down the line a little bit in a better place, because you can make the decision a little bit earlier when it's more obvious who the better coaching candidates are, and not try to put all your eggs in the Billy Napier basket right as Billy Napier's signing an extension with his team.
Fake news, bro. Fake news.
You're right. My bad. So I feel like I can't agree with that. It's that the decision being when the decision was made, and maybe it does ultimately just come down to timing for me. I just feel like it's setting the program back several years in terms of repairing what's going on, because now, instead of being able to just hire a good coach to handle what's going on, you might have to consider hiring a Sylvester Kroom type, repair things and then get him out and put in the good coach. You know what I mean? Like that whole situation to set the foundation back. I'm just worried about that happening. It makes me less interested in next season, knowing that it's kind of a mess.
I guess the question then is, do you keep somebody just because of timing? Like to Gray's point, right, when you see the writing on. Yeah. My answer is, you're saying, yeah, health of the program, probably, till you can really get what you want. But here's the reality. We're not on the inside for a good reason. I would say probably for me, for very good reason. They don't pay me.
Whoa, back up, Craig. Back up. I played a lot of Madden. I know a lot of NCAA football.
Right.
2014. I know the decisions that need to be made.
And you mentioned earlier, like people on social media having opinions and, Camp Pro tweeting at players. I'm just kidding. I'm definitely anti that. My point is, we're not. The reality is, we're not on the inside. We don't know everything that they know. Right. I guess the ultimate question is, do you keep somebody just because of timing? And we don't have all the facts, so I don't know. We will see though.
Right.
The trigger has been pulled. I agree with Gray though, in the sense of, if I see the writing on the wall, I say just go ahead and pull the trigger, and then, but to your point, you may be left with scraps and.
Yeah, and and I look at programs like an Arkansas or a Tennessee, who was in a constant cycle of quickly hiring and firing again, and two programs that have been, kind of a punchline a lot of times through the process of that. And I just see the possibility of that happening in this situation based off of what could be seen as a bit of a panic move after a bowl, after a fight, after the national embarrassment, and not necessarily based off of, timing it better where when the season ends and you're like, okay, was the season a bit of a mess? That sort of thing.
I feel like we've been through this before. This scenario where there's a national fight and the stands, and there's a coach, and then he gets fired, and we hire an assistant. Why does this sound familiar? I don't know.
Hashtag bring stands home.
Bring stands.
I would be on board with that. I'm just going to go on the record. I love Stanberry.
I would. I think Western Kentucky's doing pretty well under stands.
I'm sure they are.
I'll fact check that while we're recording. But yeah, if the writing's on the wall, I mean, you're right. I mean, is it worth prolonging something if you've kind of made up your mind. And the question also comes down, I mean, do you trust Cohen? Do you trust that Cohen knows what he's doing?
That is a question.
And
that's a great question.
That's a major question right now. You know, do you actually trust him in the process? And I mean, at the end of the day, I think we can all agree that we can blame all of this and all of our frustrations on Scott Strickland and Dan Mullen for abandoning us. Oh, yeah. No, probably still Hugh Freeze, too. Yeah, why not? We can blame Hugh Freeze. But Scott and Dan, we hate you. So,
okay, no. Like, no. In all seriousness, with Scott Strickland, and this includes Dan Mullen, I hate going back to this word because nobody really knows what it means, but they built a culture of success or just expectations. You know, we could go in and lose a game, but nobody ever thought or just kind of just laid down in all sports. I think Strickland in particular just created this buzz around Mississippi State. There weren't a whole lot of embarrassing moments. We probably had some of our biggest moments under Strickland as just a Mississippi State brand. A lot of that had to do with Mullen and Dak and the big 2014 year and all of that. But, you know, when you see former players on Twitter saying, oh, man, if they could just get Matt Balis in there and get the strength and conditioning program back, man, that'll straighten it out. That'll straighten up the culture. Or, man, if Grantham was in there, he wouldn't be, man, like I would never think about doing this if you know, Coach Grantham had me in there doing blah, blah, blah. It's just.
Because Coach Grantham was liable to actually kill someone, I think.
Yes.
They were trying to get at.
Oh, absolutely. But I do think there must have been some kind of just evidence in the culture surrounding the program other than wins and losses that just kind of had a cause for alarm that this was going to be a continued regression. I hate the timing of it all too. I mean, you're coming after National Signing Day doing this after, you know, every game except for like 2 has been played. It's weird timing. I wish if we were going to make the move, we would have just bitten the bullet after the end of the regular season. It would have been a strange move to do that coming off of a win, but I don't know. It's all really messy, and I think it's more of a football issue. I think it could very well be a administration not having a sense of what Mississippi State needs to be. I don't know. It's all very messy. I think it's more than football, but since we're talking about football, I guess I'll kind of stick to it.
Yeah. No, it is. It is a mess. Okay. Let's try to get past the football thing real quick by saying, okay.
No.
Craig says
I don't
no.
want to talk about Bruce Pearl.
No, we will not.
I don't want to do it. No. I don't want to do it. Because I had hopes for this basketball team.
Yeah, I know.
Hopes for Reggie Perry.
I know.
We'll lose them next year. And
I know. We'll get it. Craig, we'll get there. Let's talk about an even more
pessimist.
It is. We're living up to our name. Let's talk about an even more depressing topic real quick. Out of the list of names that might have been associated with the job so far, Gray, is there anyone is there any name out there that you feel like makes any sense?
Do you have a list that you could read off to us?
Off memory, I remember a couple of things. I remember there was an article in The Athletic posted that had most of the names that have been associated. It had the Billy Napier at Ooh La La, Bill Clark at UAB, Willie Fritz at Tulane. He mentioned both of the Monkins. Jeff is at Army and Todd is still in the NFL. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout the wild card of Joe Judge, special teams coach for the Patriots and Mississippi State alum, who apparently is a favorite to get the New York Giants head coaching job, which I think is interesting. So there was that. There's a lot of that mentioned. I know, Ro, you had sent us picture of some odds makers that had listed even Gene Chizik in there.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to find. I can't find it though.
Yeah. So those are some of the names that have been floating around. And of course, we all know Craig's choice is Mark Hudspeth.
Yes.
Winston Academy alum.
Yes. You know, hashtag bring HUD home.
That says it all. That says it all. So I mean, just kind of those are some of the names that have been associated. Yeah, those are some of the names, at least. I mean, Gray, is there anyone that you could think of that you think would be a good fit, or I don't know, who's realistic even?
The only one that I could really get behind and have a little bit of excitement about is Napier, just based off of what he's been able to do at Ulala. I mean, Jeff Monken, he's running a triple option at a service academy school.
Do you think that he is asked to run that, like by the people in charge of the academy? Like, this is what we do. This is the type of recruit we get. So just keep doing this. Or do you think that those coaches actually just love running a triple option?
Yes.
Rose says that they just love it.
He interned and he coached with Paul Johnson at Georgia Tech for all those years. And they made a collective decision back then to abandon traditional football and go back to the triple option, wishbone, weird, whatever. And it worked out for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden, Bobby Bowden and Sweeney and all the other ACC coaches, not named because there's only 2, figured it out really quickly, and then Georgia Tech became a stomping ground that it always has been. So, and meaning that they get stomped on every year by every program. They're still trying to recover from that.
I did read an interview several years ago. The Navy head coach, I cannot pronounce his name.
He's the only one who can.
But it's a lot of what they feel like they need to do that, because you cannot have a 340-pound offensive guard playing at a service academy.
Right.
Just the restrictions of what players are, allowed to weigh comes into it some of the time. So they opt for more agile, a little bit leaner guys on the offensive and defensive lines. So that's what he was saying. I think a lot of it just has to do with tradition and what's worked and all that stuff. But if he came to Mississippi State, obviously you would have to hire an OC to, shape what an offense looks like. But
maybe he brings the leadership side of things, and we have a good OC. But I don't remember the last time that Mississippi State had an OC. Just like in general, like the last 2 head coaches have wanted to run the offense. And before that, I don't think Kroom believed in offense. So
it was player led.
It was.
It was like an AAU. AAU. Like Michael Hennig was like, "Nah, bruh, I got this." 7 interceptions later in 1 quarter.
Yeah, bro, I got this shattered clavicle as he's throwing an interception.
I mean, Gene Chizik at Auburn had a player-led offense with Cam Newton, so I guess it can work.
That's triggering to Joseph. You
should have known the rules, Gray. You should have known the rules. You of all people, I trusted you. You were the chosen one. All right.
I hate you.
I will say this in defense of the triple option at the service academies is, after watching Air Force and Washington State with my Washington State alum father-in-law while I was over the holidays, I think they just kind of let you hold however you want when you're running that offense. Because if you watched any replay in slow motion, like the Air Force offensive linemen were like throwing Washington State players to the ground, and the refs are just like, Good job. That's a good guy.
Hey, in all honesty, the last Mississippi State offensive coordinator was Woody McCorvey.
Woody McCorvey. Yeah. Yep. We had the guy that went to Kansas as well under Mullen. Yeah. Who I just that's right. Who I couldn't stand what he anyway. Doesn't matter.
Les King, right?
Yes, yeah, that's it. Thank you. I'm sorry. I talked over you when you said it. My bad.
Oh no, you're good.
So yeah, some of the other names I found the list that you sent, Ro. This was put up on January 3rd, so I'm sure it's changed a million times by now. But they had Napier as the odds favorite, Chiswick as the second, Joe Judge is third. I know. Joe Judge is third. Dave Aranda was in there.
No way.
Willie Fritz, Bill Clark, and then for some reason, because they have to, they throw Mike Leach, and then Jeff Monken was like the least popular pick there. So, Craig, do you have a choice here? Do you have anyone that you think would work?
Boobie Dixon.
Woo! Yes.
Yes.
Always players hype. Always motivational.
Dude, always having fun, bro.
Always having fun. Always got a smile on his face. Beloved Mississippi State guy from the South, checking all the fans' boxes. Okay. So he's got my vote.
Those big boys up front, they'll be pushing it.
They keep pushing it. They keep pushing it.
Fun. I will tell you, I don't understand some. I know it is a minority, but it's a vocal minority because they bought a billboard obsession with Mark. What is that?
Mark Hudspeth. I don't.
It's just because he was from close by. I don't know.
He was loved when he was an assistant under Mullen. Like players raved about him, and I think because he just was like an alum and nearby, and like so they loved him when he was there, and so it started then where there was this weird, vocal contingent of if Mullen ever leaves us, or if we just get tired of Mullen,
right,
we got to get Hud.
Right.
Because he was viewed at that point in time as a big time up and coming assistant coach. And then when he left, he went to a program that was in shambles and he did nothing to fix it. So when he left state, he went to a program and he did exactly what we're complaining about Moorhead doing now.
Mediocre or worse. Anyway. I honestly, I don't know. I don't have a favorite. It's just going to be a wait and see. I think I learned my lesson though on Moorhead. Moorhead, God, he sold me on those talking points. I'll just admit it. Mm-hmm. He was the king of the Monday morning motivational posters in the conference room, the corporate, poise, precision, passion, all of that. And when we first hired him, I was like, oh boy. And then it didn't take long for me to see through it. So I learned my lesson on that. So I'll wait and see how it shakes out. But no, I don't have a favorite, but especially not off that list, honestly. Yeah. Hopefully they just surprise us with Nick Saban, as Ro keeps saying.
I really think it's going to be somebody that nobody is even. It's not even on anyone's radar, for sure. Although Bill Clark, it's impressive what he's done over at UAB, literally building a program that was shut down because of descendants of Paul Bear Bryant wanting UAB not to have a program anymore.
Things are really healthy over there in the Alabama school system. Bill Clark is one that I would like, by the way.
Oh, dude, hang on.
Out of that list,
finish your statement. Yeah.
Yeah, out of that list, I don't care as much about Billy Napier personally. I feel like Bill Clark has enough of a resume at this point in time where either he or Willie Fritz I'd be more into. Ro, what you got?
Well, a side note on Bill Clark. So Bill Clark recruited and coached my brother-in-law, Kenny Thompson, when he was at South Alabama in like 2008 or 9 or somewhere around there. And so I texted when I saw the list and Bill Clark's name was on there, and I texted my brother-in-law and I said, "Give me your honest opinion. What do you think?" And he said, "Well, to be honest, I genuinely do not like Bill Clark as a person or as a coach." And I was like, "Oh, so probably not a good hire." And he was like, "Absolutely not." And I quote, "There is a reason he is staying in the Conference USA for so many years. He can't make that transition. Apparently, he's just not a very I'm not going to say he's not a good person because I don't know the guy, but judging from my brother-in-law's take on it, who played for him, I wouldn't be too excited. I'd be a little sad. I think the name that I keep hearing that's getting a lot of traction is Bill Belichick. The Patriots are coming. They're coming off their a loss.
Cheat to win, baby. Cheat to win.
And
just ignore the fact they're about to get punished by the NFL again. Who cares? That's what you have to do in sports to succeed. It's just the facts.
Here's what I think. My honest opinion, okay? Aside from, I'm not even playing here. Ole Miss hires Lane Kiffin, right? Mm-hmm. A drunkard, a fornicator, a person who is definitely a dealership. All right? We gotta meet that expectation. There's a guy right now he is coaching offensively for Nick Saban in Alabama. So we caught the Nick Saban coaching tree. Check. Needs redemption. Check. His name is Steve Sarkisian. He drunkenly made a speech to villagers. He genuinely has disregard for players. We need a guy like that. Plus, everybody knows his name. If we're going to bring Hud home, that's cool. But bring Sarkisian too. Give him a second chance. Mississippi State is a team of redemption. It's a redemption story. We have to sell that to our players, to our recruits. That's what we need. We need someone who's going to come in and give second chances. That's what we need. That's my guy. Steve Sarkisian. Let's do it. Let's bring him. Let's go.
Yep. I mean, so far, Sark has only destroyed one program in his personal life.
Just one. So
he's doing better than Lane.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin has at least 3 on his hands. Yeah, right?
Exactly. So
who's the guy who hit his wife from Ohio State?
Oh, Jim Tressel.
Some Smith, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, that's it. Jason Garrett did become available today if he'd like to leave his, 20-year NFL career to come to a mid to low level SEC school.
That would be the most bizarre thing ever.
Yeah, if all we want to do is remain as mediocre as possible, there's no one more mediocre than Garrett.
Wait a minute, how many gingers are in college football? I don't think there's enough. So he could be kind of like that resurgence of ginger coaches,
But does Dallas count as Southern enough?
Oh, good question.
Getting pretty close. Getting pretty close to West.
Maybe do you think our fan base would want Jason Garrett there just because he knows Dak?
Yes.
100%. 100%. Absolutely.
Migrated to Dallas to follow Dak, and they know that name. And just like Bud, they know the name. So,
are you friends with Dak? Let's bring him in. He seems so nice. He's friends with Dak. Let's bring Dak in. What's Dak doing?
Hey, what's Dak like? What's he like?
Dak is my friend on Goodreads.
Why don't you bring that up more often? Chandler has Najee Harris. You have Dak. Man.
What? You got Dak on Goodreads? Oh my god.
Nah, I don't have Goodreads. No. I don't read books.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna say something negative about Goodreads. Whatever. I'm not gonna. It's not worth it.
But seriously, is there that list that you just read that has all the odds and everything? Mm-hmm. And any of the people that we've named, both jokingly or not, is anyone available that you're going to be like, wow, that is a great, neat hire? At least with Moorhead, when we hired him, they had all the success, the Trace McSorley, the running back guy, Saquon, right?
Respect him.
Who on that list is going to be like, man, let's get my goose pimples goosen, whatever they call that.
It's kind of weird. It was kind of they just call it goosebumps. That was a weirder way of saying it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I mean, honestly, the only two that are intriguing is the fact that the odds makers even had Dave Aranda on the list. It won't happen. That's interesting that they even put him on the list. But, you know, if that happened, then it would be like, oh, maybe that's pretty good. And the only other one is, honestly, the only intriguing one is Joe Judge from the Patriots.
Yeah.
Mississippi State player, apparently respected enough where NFL teams, granted it's the Giants, so they are barely an NFL team, but NFL teams are wanting to hire him. You know, that's intriguing. But they're both assistants. They would have to learn how to be college head coaches.
Well,
and
if we got him, hopefully he would have picked up some really good tips on cheating.
Right.
And which is what's needed to win.
Yeah. Judge, if we hire Judge, he's going to have the best film crew in the SEC.
Just hire the Patriots video coordinator.
Yeah, exactly. And like, if anyone gets on him, he'll just be like, bro, I could delete the footage right now. It's only on my camera, bro.
No foul.
Hey, you know that? You know
don't even
that
have it on
picture-
memory card, bro. Don't even have it on memory card.
It's in the cloud.
It's in the cloud, bro.
You know-
It's just on the camera, bro.
That picture of it, when you go to the movie theater and those guys are sitting there recording
Yes.
and they have their, like, one of them's in a hoodie and they're going like, and they have that mean criminal look on their face.
They might as well just go ahead and put a Bruins logo on that hoodie. Just go ahead and do it. Come on, movie theater people. We want you to do it. All right. Well,
I agree with that though. I think Joe Judge, because he has like 5 championships associated with his name, and he's been with Bill Belichick since 2014, and before that he was with maybe Nick Saban, maybe.
I think so. I think every name on that list is a former Saban assistant somehow. It's really so freaking annoying that we do that.
I know, dude.
Stupid
I know.
If Joe Judge gets hired, I'm very curious if he will bring in current assistant special teams coach and my former classmate at Belhaven, Cameron Acord, who works for the Patriots.
Shout out.
Interesting to see if that happens. So, also, shout out to Cameron Acord. Exactly. All right, we're running long on the episode, so we'll save most of the basketball talk for another time. But real quick, it kind of seems like due to the non-conference mistakes and then the disappointment against Auburn, guys, I was at that game, and like after everyone shook hands, the players went to like grab like, you know, towels, warm-ups, all that off the bench, and Howland just walked to the tunnel and just had his head down, and he just looked so dejected by what had just transpired. Not a great look, but so real quick, we'll go around and to wrap things up here, but season in trouble, likely tournament chances flushed at this point, but what in the world was wrong with this basketball team right now? Craig, you want to start things off trying to diagnose that problem?
I think we don't have. I think
we're playing flat-footed. First of all,
we're playing flat-footed. Shoot 100 free throws and then walk home. I think we don't have a true point guard, and we don't have a really good shooting guard who can just make threes when we need them. And I think that's
this Tyson slump. This Tyson Carter slump is one of the worst slumps I've ever seen from a player.
And if we don't have that, because God, what did we make? Would we make 1, 2 threes the other day?
One, and we only attempted 10 or 11.
Yeah, and so when you can't make any perimeter shot whatsoever, and no decent point guards like those freshmen, they may develop, but anyway, we have no perimeter shooters right now, and therefore Reggie Perry and Adu is coming along like shocker. Like he is coming along, but
he had a game.
But when you don't have that, then it's really, really all they have to do is just keep everything inside, and you know they got you covered. So anyway, I think that's the problem.
Do you think if Tyson wasn't in that slump, we would have beaten Auburn?
I think so, because we started out so strong, and I think and we kept it really close to the second half, and I think if you just hit a couple of clutch perimeter shots, then we're in it, and the momentum was there. Like even though the hump wasn't at capacity, like anytime there was a chance to get back in it, like I was watching on TV, the crowd was in it, and we were there. So like Robert Woodard hit that three that time, and that could have changed things. Absolutely. Now, your boy Fizel, I do have to mention this. He was solely responsible for their 9-point run.
It was rough. Hey, no, the out of bounds pass was a bad pass.
Okay. He left that guy unguarded who hit two threes in a row, and then he turned the ball over. So he stepped on the line. So I was like, please get Fizel out there.
Thank you for shouting out my boy
for their little 9 or 10-point run. Anyway, that was a huge momentum swing right there.
It was. He had far and away the worst 2-3 minute stretch that any of our players have had this entire season.
Like, how is that even possible? But
like that stretch was so bad. Yeah. It's like, I mean, how tired is Perry? Can we?
Yeah.
Is he coughing up blood on the court? No. Can we put him back in there?
But yeah, you're right. The slump and just we need some perimeter shooters. And Nick Weatherspoon, I mean, he was trying to make some things happen. I'm not really not mad at what he was doing. But anyway,
I mean, yeah, the problem is at that point in time when State should have in that first half just put Auburn away. Because a team like that's going to go on a run at some point. It's basketball. That's what happens. So when you have the opportunity to kill a team in the first half, you have to do it. All Auburn had to do was just take their defense, step closer to the basket a step and a half, and then suddenly, what you're saying, Nick, good drive. All he can get is an awkward baseline floater.
Right.
Reggie's missing stuff he doesn't normally miss. Robert Woodard, the best mid-range shooter we've had since Rodney Hood, is missing mid-range shots. That sort of thing. Yeah, it didn't take much. We just couldn't stretch them out. I mean, Ro, you think that's it as well? You want to add anything else?
Yeah, I think Craig hit it all the points that I would say. We don't have a true point guard. We don't have a consistent, disciplined shooting guard or whatever. I mean, the only thing that I would add is that I think with all these Ben Howland teams now that I've seen something that really irks me is free throw shooting. Why I don't understand it for the life of me. Last year was the same story, guys missing free throws, and you can count on them to miss it. I think, especially
we shot free throws well against Auburn.
No. Last year, last game against Auburn, we better than usual. But I mean, Craig and I and you and we all went to the game where we lost here in Jackson. Free throws were, oh my God, just atrocious. Missing, it's just, to me, that's inexcusable. I think great NCAA tournament teams definitely make it. But no, are we going to make the tournament? Absolutely not this year. No, not barring a miracle and we just win out the rest of the season, which ain't going to happen, and win the tournament. I think our RPI or whatever they're using it these days is too low. And
the net
rankings. Yeah. Yeah, it's not happening. I think the other side of it too, our defense, we were great for the first 10 minutes of that game. I mean, as best we've probably ever been. And then just like it goes with all these teams, we cannot, for whatever reason, score points. And I think the game has changed so much. When you don't have that 3-point shooter, it just doesn't work. I think the kids respond to that more so than they do a big dunk or or a guy like Reggie Perry used to be, like a Charles Rhodes. When you just feed somebody like him,
Charles
and
Rhodes.
Oh man, he just turn around layups or turn around jump shots or whatever.
That baseline fadeaway, my God.
Yeah.
Charles Rhodes would probably still feast in the modern game.
100% feed the beast, bro.
He would absolutely feast in the modern game.
100%. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I was looking at the stats again, and oddly enough, free throws we did shoot. Actually, we shot really well free throws that game.
Yeah,
better than I thought.
We went
83%.
Yeah, and the New Mexico State game though we were 63%.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah,
New Mexico State was terrible. Exactly. No, you're right. Well, and the thing I think that also stands out as I look at it, and I remember, that Iverson Molinar, he sucked whenever he was on the court. He did not have a good game. DJ Stewart played like 18 minutes and was just not good. Like,
so many went in and out of that ball.
oh no! I don't know what just happened.
What in the
I
world?
don't know what just happened to Craig's microphone, but I think Satan took over for a second.
It sounded like
Stewart. I remember Stewart would get the ball like on offense. We'd pass it to him, and he'd take like 2 dribbles, and then just stop and just stare and be like, "Okay, someone please take it from me." He just was so scared. He was so timid. It was just, yeah. But I look at those names also, and I remember they're both freshmen. I mean, Stewart's a redshirt, but they're both freshmen. Woodard and Perry are still only sophomores. We miss a true veteran like a Quindary Weatherspoon.
Yeah.
Who was not just like an outside shooter, but also was a veteran, experienced player who could kind of lead things. Lamar Peters dropped 31 points in a G League game like yesterday.
Really?
Headshot. Shout out, dude.
The most frustrating player on the planet.
I can't deal with
Craig.
whatever technical difficulties is going on with Craig. I can't handle it.
It's Satan has come out, dude. What in the
It's
world?
so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad.
I'll stop talking.
No, don't. It's fascinating.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Gray, wrap us out on the basketball talk. You got anything else you want to add to the current situation here? We can do a deep dive on the next episode since mercifully football season is over. But a quick thought on the basketball season to this point?
Yeah, we need a leader. We need a guy like somebody step up like Q that could, when things got tough, you knew who to give it to, and he was going to make it happen. And
a spark plug, man.
A spark plug. When this team loses juice, they don't get it back.
Yeah, maybe not even a leader. You remember how freaking Dietrich Slater back in the day was a spark plug. Like, you couldn't count on that guy to do much, but the moment that the game just kind of stalled, he'd be like, up and under layup. Just all the time. Anyway.
All the time. Phil Turner. I love Phil Turner.
Phil Turner.
Oh, dude, Phil Turner. He's the he's
State
actually
legend.
He right now, he was, and he was the principal at Yazoo City High School. So I got to tell him to his face, like, man, I loved watching you shoot 3-pointers. You were an amazing player.
He was a fun, you just counted on Phil Turner to hit about 3 threes and get about 5 or 6 rebounds as like a 6'1" point guard or whatever. It just was great.
Yeah. I just think we need, and I think Nick does this on occasion. He'll come up with some big play of that block he had. Stuff like that to get the juice going. We don't have a whole lot of that, and we still just do these silly just turnovers that lead to easy baskets, or just I don't know. But in the first half, Auburn, I think, is 0 of 11 from 3. We're down at the half. It's just I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember what that stretch was of, at the end of the first half, that stretch of just not being able to hit a single shot. I don't know how long that lasted, but it just was it. It was the game, basically. So,
yeah, we were like 0 of 8 with 4 turnovers, like with a stretch in there where Auburn made their run. And I don't know. Yeah. And then with Tyson in his slump, it's just like, where are we going to find these points? I don't know.
I don't know either, but I feel like our time's run out on this episode, so we won't really be able to fully diagnose all of the issues and offer our sage advice and wisdom to the Mississippi State basketball program and to Coach Ben Howland. For real though, Ben Howland looked so sad leaving the court. I've just felt so bad for him because what's his face is over there on the other side, just hamming it up. Freaking cartoon character coach.
Oh God! Don't even say his name.
I bet he's having a barbecue with his players at his house after that game.
Mm-hmm. And
some recruits too.
Yep, as many sorority girls as he can find to come hang out as well. So. All right, we're going to wrap up this episode then of the Pessimist. We are very pessimistic and really trying to live up to the show's name this time around. So, Craig, good to have you back on the show. Are you still possessed? Sounds good. Okay.
Sounds good.
Demon has
not possessed.
It's passed. Craig has been exorcised over there. So, thank you again, Ro, Gray. As always, gentlemen. Stay as pessimistic as possible.
Before we leave, we got to give our a shout out to our sponsors over at the Junction. That sweet summer sausage. Pick up a couple of sausage, a couple of sticks on your way home from a game at Starkville. You can find their locations in Louisville, Mississippi.
After a tough loss, stop in for summer sausage.
Lift your spirits by sucking on that sausage.
I should have stopped this recording a while back. I'll be honest with you.
I'm talking about that sweet summer sausage.
Sweet summer sausage from the Junction in Louisville. Gray, you were a former Louisville resident. Why don't you sign us off with a quick word from of how good the Junction is?
The Junction is great. They have a Dippin' Dots ice cream bin, so you can get your summer sausage and then finish it off with some Dippin' Dots.
Oh no! Christ, Demon is back! Oh no!